Welcome to MSP Unplugged, episode number 42, Working on Your Business. I'm your host, Paco Lebron. This is our live show where we discuss different ways to run your IT business, whether it's managed services, consulting, break fix, or anything in between. We wanted to do a few call to actions really quick before we go into the show. The first one is we actually had, with TechCon Unplugged of 2020 actually having been canceled, we had a lot of great partners that provided a lot of great promotional deals and discounts to our members. One of those was our friends over at Malwarebytes, and a lot of the community were asking because their tech bench renewals were coming up. So we wanted to go ahead and let you guys know that they actually reached back out and they informed us that they will be having a Black Friday and Cyber Monday special. The deal is going to run from November 25th to December 2nd. And basically, the Malwarebytes Tech Bench Advanced will be $249. So it'll have $100 off. And what that gets you is the portable Malwarebytes tool set, as you know we will get before, and the Malwarebytes breach remediation for the year. You also get the 25 pack, as you always do with Malwarebytes premium licenses for resale. And that obviously goes on Windows, Mac, Android, and Chromebook. And then you have access to basically the highest margins when you're doing that type of tier for the year. So if you happen to go over those 25, you will get a much better discount because you're in that program. If you want to go ahead and take advantage of the special offer, we'll have it in the show notes here. Basically, you'll have the URL that'll go directly to purchase it. And then, or you can go ahead and email techbench@malwarebytes.com. And if for some reason something goes wrong, or if you've purchased it and it's outside of the promo, email the techbench@malwarebytes.com with your order number and the company details, and Malwarebytes will go ahead and take care of you. So we appreciate them to letting us know that that's coming up. But again, it's going to go live November 25th to December 2nd. Next call to action is one of my favorites for shameless plug is TechCon Unplugged 2021. We're going to be out and we're going to be back in Rosemont, Illinois. So essentially Chicago, you'll be flying into September 17th to the 19th in a beautiful Aloft hotel. We're going to have a lot of great, amazing panels to maintain and improve your business, which we're going to talk a little bit about today. You're going to get to meet some of the vendors you work with or vendors you've been wanting to work with, but get a little bit more of a personal discussion, a one-on-ones, really get to be able to press the flesh, rub elbows with your peers in the community. So again, we wanted to throw this event live. We are on track to doing so. Everything looks good. We have spoke with a lot of our partners and vendors, those that have sponsored us in the past, along with a few new ones that will be coming on with us as well. So we're super excited and happy to announce those once we get the ink dried on some of those deals. But if you want to go ahead, you can get your tickets now. It's $199. It will get you access to Friday night and Saturday night socials. We will have all the food and drink provided. And again, it's going to be a lot of great fun, a lot of great information, and it's going to be a great time. So head over to techconunplugged.com to purchase your ticket today. I don't want to say it like how everyone else does, but there may be a limit that we have to implement. So you want to go ahead and get into your spot now before that fills out, because if we do get our cap, we do have to cap it off until we find out, if restrictions are lifted, depending on the area. But hopefully we're on track, fingers crossed, to have a great time, great event, and we look forward to seeing you there. With all that said, well, let's go ahead and introduce our co-host. We have none other than John Dubinsky over at the Maven Group. John, how are you?
I have you 5x5 in my COVID isolation chamber. Paco, it's great to be here.
It's great to have you. And then we have none other than Kyle Kenyon from Pro Tech Guy. Kyle, how are you?
I'm doing well. Happy to be here. Excited to learn from everybody and hopefully offer some awesome tips for everybody else watching.
Perfect. Yeah, so we're going to go ahead. I know we've kind of skipped the tip section the last couple of weeks, but, obviously with Jeff out today, unfortunately, and I was able to rope my good friend John in to kind of fill in that spot with Kyle. We wanted to go into a nice tip section here. So, John, I'll throw it over to you first. What do you got for us today?
All right, I'm a little rusty, so let me get fired up with just two quick tips. So on the antivirus bandwagon, I'm a big Windows Defenders fan, and of course I supplement that with some EDR and some other products as well. But if you're using Windows Defender and you need a tool to help you out, There's a great product called ConfigureDefender that you can find on GitHub. It's called ConfigureDefender, and basically it's a tiny little utility that really unlocks everything that's actually available in Windows Defender on Windows 10 Pro, and you'll be really surprised once you fire that app up what you can find, all the settings you can change, and how you can actually harden up your PCs with Windows Defender, just the basic that's included with Windows 10. Second thing on my list, and the final thing, and I'll have all this stuff in the show notes as usual because I am copious and complete. Everybody knows about UVK and our good buddy Fred over there that just keeps churning along and making good software. But what most people don't realize is that Fred actually has about 16 plus other standalone apps that you can download. Some of them pulled from within UVK, but a lot of them standalone. Two that I'll point out that are pretty sweet. There's one product called Clear Disk Info, which is a great alternative to Crystal Disk Info. It's actually a much smaller footprint and runs very quickly and auto updates. So that is very cool. You know, smart monitoring, smart tool, NVMe health, USB connected devices. Fred covers it all with that tool. The other thing is if you're struggling with any Windows update problems on your 10 machines, he has a product called the Windows Automatic Update Manager, which does a similar thing to ConfigureDefender, but it kind of dives into all the Windows update settings and lets you make all sorts of magical changes that are not revealed through the standard interface. So that's 2 of the 16. Have at it. They're under the download section on Fred's site, and I'll include that link in the show notes.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I know that, we've used UVK in the past as well. And, really, I think a lot of people are really starting to adopt Windows Defender as a really great solution. I think a lot of top security experts are even saying that Windows Defender or Microsoft Defender is really holding its weight against a lot of the threats that are happening today. I know I ran, I forgot what product I was using that kind of did a whole breach type situation. Oh, Simulate. And, as it was running some of those tests that it was going through, which you can get from PAX 8, Defender caught him right in his tracks, and there's a lot of those that it got. So it's definitely have been a great improvement. I think the ability to configure it with that tool is going to be great. And it helps you get a step in the game to really understand and help your clients even better if you've decided that that's the solution you want to go with. So, Kyle, what do you got for us today?
Yeah, I think some things I've learned kind of about myself and my business over this this whole COVID situation is organization and automation. Two huge things that I'm never really great at organization in any aspect, but organizing things in the business tremendously frees up so much resources just in myself, the rest of the team. So it's one of those things that no one likes to do it, but you really should do it. So, and then as far as the automation goes, I've never really just sat down and set things up in my RMM. And over these last few months, I've really kind of just taken those deep dives, set things up, and it's done some really cool stuff that it's an accomplishment thing. Like it's something I've never done. And I don't like coding. I don't like sitting and like doing things on the computer as far as like creating like scripts and code stuff, and just was never my thing. But once you get it up and running, and some great help from people in the Facebook groups help me get there, it's just it's things I just don't have to do manually anymore. So it's just frees up my resources to go do other things like sell new clients or implement another solution that will bring more value to my clients. So those are the two things that I think people don't like doing, but once you get them done, organize and automate, it's going to be it's going to free up your time to do other things that will help you create more revenue.
Yeah, I mean, I think, one piece of what you said there is, asking for help, right? And getting into something that you may not understand or don't have the time to get into. And, that's the great thing about a lot of the communities we're a part of, being able to ask for that help and receiving that help and knowing that there is an avenue or an outlet to be able to speak to that. I think with, for automations, you and I are both Synchro users. So, that's a big piece of us trying to figure out how do we get our PSA, automated, how do we get that going? I think from whether you're a one-man shop to having employees, having automations will be vital in so many different ways. But if you don't know where to go, you have to be able to ask questions, and you shouldn't be afraid to ask those questions. And that's one of the things I want to highlight is that, that's what these communities are about. And that's the real big piece of, it's valuable to hear it from a like-minded individual that is in the same position as you are, especially if you're using the same tools and the same type of business, same area geographically as well. Having the ability to ask for help and getting that and knowing you can is such a great opportunity for you to further where you are. So never be afraid to ask for help, no matter how you may feel. There's probably 10 others that have that same question, especially if you post it in a public forum like that.
Absolutely. I agree. It's one of those things too that I hope that me posting about something in a Synchro group or even the MSP Unplugged group, that not only it helps me in a situation, but also someone can read it, search for it later, see it in their feed and go, oh, I should do that too. Because there's so many things that I've seen from others that kind of, get those wheels turning that like,
Sure.
Oh yeah, I should go set up that automation. I should run that script. It's having those groups is a huge kind of like weight off your shoulder, so to speak, or just having that kind of extra help when you need to kind of cash in on that.
Sure, absolutely. And like you said, Facebook groups are a great part for that. John, is there any resources or anything that you've seen that has helped you? I'm sure that you read the ConfigureDefender software from GitHub from somewhere. What has been kind of your source or kind of go-tos to kind of just peruse and see kind of what's out there to help you with your business?
Well, I'd say I've fallen in love with a couple little things here, and now that you put me on the spot, of course, I can't find my link to it. But
sure.
Well, of course, all the groups I belong to, just like you say, I mean, there's a lot there. I definitely have spent a lot of time in my Google News feed curating that to make sure I get updates and information on the topics I want in the feed when I wake up every morning. I know they say it's a horrible thing to grab your phone first thing, but it is what I do. Because it's where I find, and I'm sure that's where I found ConfigureDefender, probably in some sort of news feed, because I have Microsoft Defender and Windows Defender as search topics to come into my custom feed. So, I spent a lot of time with that. And, Paco, I could blame you too, but it's the, what's the one I just shared? It had the whole last thing when we were having our little scripting discussion when I helped you with that script. I don't know. I'll find it and bring it back in.
Yeah, I don't recall, to be honest, that conversation. So I'll have
it's just a great Windows 10 site that has just tons
of
tutorials.
10 forums, I think it was, or something like that. 10
forums, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, so exactly. So I was trying to. So there was a channel E2E article that had came out over from our friends over at Ninja, and they said like these are the top 28 things that you should be monitoring. So I was trying to recreate that in Synchro. Some of those alerting and things, because they are really good best practices, and I'll grab that URL for everyone and post it in the show notes. But but a lot of those were for me to try and plan. All right, am I going to do this as a command line prompt? Is this a batch? Is this going to be PowerShell? So it was just a conversation with John. He says, "Hey, that's everything here," and sent me the URL, and I was able to get a majority of what I needed and plug them in. So it was a great resource find that I forgot about 10 forums, and I've only used it very rarely. So it was great to, again, have a colleague that I can contact and bounce his ideas off of, and it worked out. So again,
I would say 80% of every script I've ever written, I've probably started at 10 forums to get. It's awesome. Yeah, it's awesome.
So we'll get a link to them over as well for that. Yeah. So as far as for me, my tip is it's an oldie but a goodie. I think even John may have brought this tip up at one point in a previous show. The website is called privnote.com. And I think a lot of people use this now, but I think it's a great tool for where if you're going to be sharing passwords or confidential login information, this is a great way to do it. If you're not in email and not in your ticketing system, it basically essentially it's just a notepad. You pop the information in there, but it self-destructs essentially. It'll erase itself after a certain amount of time, or I think after the view of the information. So it's been a great security piece for me, and I believe, and it's free. So you essentially just pop it in, send it off with the link. The user will get the information and kind of go from there. And it's just, again, that additional nice little thing to keep yourself away from the good old bad guys that are out there trying to get everything from everything that we have here, and makes our livelihoods interesting but also profitable as well. So we want to make sure that we want to keep them as far away as possible and not trying to hand them the keys to the castle. So privnote.com, we'll have that in the show notes as well. All right. So why don't we go into, obviously both of you have been on the show before. Why don't you go ahead and, Kyle, I'll start with you. Kind of just talk about, quick introduction, what's your business size, and we can kind of just dive into the main topic from there.
Yeah. So I am, I guess I'm a hybrid break fix managed service, trying to get away from that break fix and focus more of our attention into the managed services side of things. I genuinely enjoy it. I like helping businesses out and just seeing them grow. Over the years, we've had some clients for 10 years now that is just like they were in a 200 square foot office and now they've got their own buildings with hundreds of employees. So it's nice to see that. So I really enjoy that side of things. I guess I'm kind of a one-man show, but virtually, I guess if you want to count virtual employees and things, we kind of outsource some of those tasks just to make everything happen, get some of the things off my plate that I don't necessarily do well or do efficiently. We hire out for those types of things. What else? I'm in Massachusetts, Metro West area, so probably 25 minutes from Boston, 45 minutes pre-COVID, 20 minutes with the no traffic. But yeah, it's I got an office space about 3 years ago. That was a huge change for me, and it's probably one of the best changes I've ever made. It just really helps me focus, get things done, and it cranked up my break fix side of things. I think people had more trust in that once they knew there was a brick and mortar that they felt more comfortable with. Like I said before, now I want to kind of transition away from that a little bit, but the office still serves a very big purpose for me, just to be able to expand. Once we have some physical people in the office with me, there's room to expand and grow and give them their own workspace. So it's been kind of a lot of changes over the last 8 months, really kind of snowballing everything and making big changes into our stack and doing things to better serve our clients. And I think one of the biggest things is educating those clients to know what the current threat landscape really is. And we don't necessarily care. We do care, but it's not as important as the old virus that you download and it gives you 100 pop-ups. It's the bad guy, like you were just talking about. Someone reading those passwords in your email is much more likely and common than it is that they're gonna steal your credit cards for some malware program. Those are very common, but it's one of those things that it's all the social engineering stuff and watching those behaviors that happen inside computers that we really want to watch out for today, and setting up security first, where we're not having a password of password. A lot of changes for especially those clients that have been with us for a long time that maybe were used to some of those things years ago, and having password lists on their desktop. It's changing all those habits and implementing those changes that we're really focused on now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. John, want a quick intro for yourself as he hits the mute button?
Yeah, there we go. So I'm the old guy at the club, and I live here. And if you don't know what that means, check your map and work here. Let's see. I've been doing this for about 25 years. I manage about 1,000 endpoints. I'm on the downslope of what I do, probably. I got some big changes coming up at the end of the year that maybe we'll do talk about it in another show. But Kyle has made some great points. He's already stole some of my topics for the rest of the show, and he makes a great point too. A lot of my customers have been with me for 20 plus years. So, now when I tell them they have to have a password on their PC, they're like, "Well, why? We never did in the past, John." And I was like, "Well, that was 25 years ago when I probably had hair and when it was 10 pounds lighter." So yes. I'm a one-man shop, but I have some great partners. I've had someone with me for a long time that pulls my cable. I have a great VoIP partner that handles all of my carrier services and VoIP. So that's about where I'm at today.
Very cool. Very cool. So, why don't we dive into the topic that Jeff set for us, but didn't show up for. And we'll go ahead and talk about, working on your business. And I think this is a topic where, I'm a big proponent on focusing on working on your business in the end of the year for the last 3 months. I've done this many times throughout the last close to 8 years that we've been in business. And it's really an opportunity for us to understand what we did for the previous months, how to close out the year very well, and then plan for 2021. Now, for those that don't know the difference of working on your business and working in your business, obviously working in your business is you're doing your day-to-day. You're handling your tasks, you're handling your customers, you are taking all the precautions and trying to, get through the day and the workload. Obviously, working on your business is being strategic, understanding what you're going to do to help your business either grow, expand, or maintain its financial, operational, and just all around brand awareness of where your company is at the moment. There are those that are very content on where they are right now and they just want to maintain. There are those that have aspirations to grow. So that's really what we're talking about today, is working on your business and really figuring out, what does that mean? What do you do? And kind of go from there. So I'll go ahead and toss it over to John. And, when it comes to working on your business, and especially after all of these years, you have built a great following, obviously, with your clients. They've stuck with you for the past over 20 years. What have you done operational wise to ensure that, they don't get fancy with anybody else as far as if anyone's trying to approach them to take their business from you? What have you done that at least over the years, quick hitters that, has really been beneficial to you and just helped the Maven Group's brand with your customers?
Well, I would say when you asked me to join the show and gave me the topic and just maybe think about that question a little bit, I came up with 8 quick little things that I think that have got me to where I'm at today. Am I the most successful guy on the block? No, but I've been rolling with this for a long time and make a good living, and I'm very happy with the business I built and pretty proud of it. But if I step back and I look at myself from when the first day I started till now, the first thing I would start with is, do I really understand, since I want to service businesses, what businesses are thinking in relation to IT technology? A good example would that be is most business owners probably don't care how the security cameras work in their business. They just want to know that they work, and if they don't, why and when they're going to be working again. So if you want an interesting way to kind of learn about the complexities about IT, there's a simple book you can read called The Phoenix Project. It's in audio. It's a short read. It is a awesome book that breaks down how to use a lot of the other things I want to talk about today briefly, but it's a great read. But it also brings in marketing, outsiders, other people that have investments, time, other technicians, management by eye, just-in-time procedures, software developments, all this other stuff into an interesting story that is real life, ongoing for an organization. So that is a great read. And I must say, I probably read that about once every 3 years, and it always got me motivated. And that's the Phoenix Project. And I will have that in a link in the show notes, obviously. The next one is, in your business, be able to manage everything by eye, or it's called control by visibility. It's a just-in-time manufacturing tactic, but you should be able to get up, look at a dashboard, or be able to manage everything you have going by eye. If you have to spend a lot of time, wasting time, digging into something, looking for something here, and this goes back to organization, which is also on my list. That is all billable time or wasteful time or beach time that you're wasting, not being organized and not being able to manage your business by eye. So you should be able to look at something and see what's broken, see what needs attention. And even now, with some of the tools that I see coming out, you should be able to manage customer satisfaction by eye. Too, I'm not a huge fan of surveys and all that, but with a temperate and a nice touch, that's a great way to get feedback to see who's happy and who's not, and who might just need an office visit, even though nothing's broken. next tip I have is move with purpose in your business. So that would be challenge, consider, and conclude. I'll have a link to something on that. That's a business practice or even a thinking process. But what I mean is before you adopt a ticket system, challenge the conclusion that you need one. Do you really need one if you're a solo tech? What are you going to get out of it? Are you tracking metrics? Do you need to be able to merge tickets? That kind of thing. You might not need one if you're just a solo tech. You might not need one in an organization. Why pay for that ticket system if you don't need it? Obviously, if it's going to bring those benefits and allow you to control by visibility or manage by eye, just consider, challenge, consider, and conclude based on facts.
Just real quick on that, I think you made a big point, and this is a very a thing that kind of the reason why me and Jeff. Jeff started the show and why I've kind of joined on and hitched on the ride is, I think that there is this misconception in the community and in our industry, where you need to get X amount of tools or this specific tool, and you're going to be off to the races. You're going to make thousands of dollars, and you're going to be rich, and you're going to go ahead and have your hot tub time and your mani-pedi, and everything's great. And what we see is two things. You have those that are struggling, and they end up finding out as months go on where the tools will not bring the customers, and that's a very big mistake that we all make. And I personally made that mistake myself in the early years, where I invested in all these tools and all these services and had the nice website and all this other stuff. And it just the customers weren't coming. Right. And I just couldn't fathom, I spent all this money. Why didn't it come? And that's this conception where they're in the industry. There are vendors and partners and people that have probably been in the industry for so many years that swear by these type of tools. But what they don't explain properly, in my opinion, is, there has to be a need for that tool. So we always go back to, for those that are starting out in the business for, let's say, computer repair, what tools do you start with? Notepad, pen. You may not even have a laptop at the time, right? And then you got to get the laptop. Once you get the laptop, then you get the screwdriver, and for every job that comes in that needs that tool, that job will now pay for the tool. And then now you've invested in job materials that will allow you to use that and make more profit as you go along. Same way it goes with the software and tools that you use for your business. If you're managing small businesses as a managed service provider, as an IT support business, starting off with a control system that will allow you to get information for clients to contact you. Email, you got your folders, you got your filtering system. Do you need to pay for a PSA or a ticketing system for that reason? Maybe you find that you will be easily organized with a ticketing system. You don't have to get the $1,000 minimum for whatever ticketing system. There are plenty of small business systems that are not maybe IT oriented, but will achieve what you're needing for the time being. And then you continue to evolve. There are those that believe you should be set up with whatever the tool is that will help scale. I'm in the belief of you manage by means. And you go into it, it's going to be a little bit painful. It will be a lot of time, but it helps you structure yourself. As you get to that point, you'll be able to be in a better position than you are before. So that would be my advice on that piece of, one size does not fit all, and just be, understanding of what you can do with your own means, and don't stretch yourself out too much.
I agree with that 100%. And this kind of ties into my next point, number 4, which is eat your own dog food, which I don't really love the saying because it gets overused. But I made a decision maybe halfway through my career after jumping from RMM to RMM and trying some PSAs and all that kind of stuff, that since I was a G Suite guy at the time, now Google Workspace guy, that I was going to utilize and build my tools from Sites, Forms, Currents, all the stuff that they offered, and not jump into something like IT Glue. Not that IT Glue is bad, but I also, and I probably go round and around, you and I do, Paco, every other year. So this is the year I'm doing IT Glue, because, you see the run book and how pretty it is. And then I print out what I have, and it's just black and white on a piece of paper. It does the job. It doesn't need to be printing, but, and I go back to your statement and to what Kyle mentioned earlier, it's about organization. And if you go into a tool, remember to get IT Glue to do what you need IT Glue to do. It's a big time investment. You got to get that stuff in there to make your run book look pretty, and then train everybody how to use it. So I'm not saying it's bad, just, make sure you challenge the need to have it and then conclude that you're going to get benefit out of it by the time you put in it. But again, eat your own dog food. So I tried to narrow down, I used to use Todoist outside. So now I just use Google To-Dos and Google Keep, and I keep everything I use the tools that are under the BAA. So I'm HIPAA compliant with my, so those are all things to challenge and conclude and consider. Again, I'm going to ride Kyle's coattails again, and organization is my number 5.
Well, really quick before we go there, I wanted to toss it over to Kyle because we had this conversation earlier.
Yeah.
Kyle, we mentioned it earlier in the show how we were kind of going through our stack and trying to figure out what was the best way. What have you done to try and do? Because I know you follow the same procedure of eat your own dog food and trying to understand what's going to be best for your clients, and you try to do that for yourself. Have you kind of figured out a way that, or what is your methodology when you decide to do something like that? Is it a quick adopt and let's head to the races, and then, if everything internally breaks, we'll handle it? Or how have you kind of managed that to make sure that your clients have the best experience when obviously we're testing for ourselves so we can make sure that they don't run into those problems?
Yeah. I'd say bringing anything into my stack, like you said, I'm a huge eat your own dog food person. Like, I may even be over vetting stuff before it rolls out to my clients. So I'm going to deploy it here at my house. We got our laptops and our desktops at home. So I'm usually going to use that kind of as the guinea pigs. And I think it also goes into, like, tools can work very well, but the company behind it needs to work with you very well. So customer support, ease of getting tickets resolved, and timeframes, I think that's huge. And I mean, that whole first impression thing is big for me. So that whole initial, like the sales calls and setups and all that type of stuff matters to me, because that's going to dictate a little bit of what is going to come down the line. You want to be able to work well with the company that you want to work with. So, but once you get into implementing the actual software, I'm definitely testing everything out before it gets rolled out. And as we were talking about before, I've rolled out a few things in the last few weeks here. Everything got tested on my systems before it went out. They're both really proven products, so it's not necessarily something that, like, it's this new thing that's on the market and no one's touched it yet. So, I mean, take that, look up your reviews, do all that type of stuff. Ask people that are using it. Ask, like we were talking about before, ask in these Facebook groups. There's probably 100 other people that are using the same thing that you are thinking about. So getting genuine feedback for people that are actually using it, that at least from on a digital, Facebook or Reddit or something like that. People that you trust their opinions, check that type of stuff out too. So it's a little bit of a process to not just jump into things. But the last thing I want is my biggest client to go, "Hey Kyle, that thing that you installed the other day, none of our computers work. We can't open our line of business apps." Like, that's the call you don't want, because it kind of hurts that trust that you've built up over the years. And you just don't want to do that. So we want to, technology issues happen. We all know that. But vetting those things and making sure they work well in all environments is absolutely important.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I think that, really trying to, I think getting feedback, and it's a double-edged sword, right? I think getting feedback on a particular product can be either good or bad, but the fact of, you going through it and time is your widget, understanding that, it's your experience, right? So somebody may have a crappy situation or issue that was specific to their environment, but then there's X amount of other people that have good experiences as well. Obviously, take all of them with a grain of salt, but use that feedback to help benefit you as you're kind of deploying your situation or your stack in general. So I think those are all great points too. So, John, I'll kick it back off to you for number 5.
Ooh, geez. All right. Number 5. Organization is key. Again, back to what Kyle said. Paco, you and I went around with this. I started my really early. I got lucky. I used 3-letter designators for everything, for my clients, for PC names, which has worked out great. So now when I see something come up with a computer name that says CDS6, I know what company it is, what endpoint it is, all that kind of cool thing. And I do the same thing with IP address ranges. So if I see an IP address reported and it's in the .20s, for me, I know that's a printer. So I know immediately what's acting up or something like that. So it's just little things where you might be able to standardize across your scale and scale across your board just to get organized. Like Kyle said, that's huge, Because, if you can save yourself 5 minutes a day times 7 days a week times 4 weeks a month time, that's some good beer time if you want to have it.
And I think that's, and it's funny you say that, because I think once you've kind of mentioned that piece of your 3-letter designator, we adopted the 4-letter designator because a lot of our clients' abbreviations ended up being 4 letters. And you're right. I mean, I think it's such a great thing, and we've added it on our checklist, is that standardization does save you time. So when you get an alert and you see that 4-letter designator, you already know which client that's affecting, and then it can determine how you react. Same thing with the IP ranges, understanding if something's coming up or something's hitting. And a perfect example with a firewall situation where something's acting up or you got a lot of traffic going out, really allows you to isolate it from kind of what John mentioned in the beginning, is being able to monitor by eye and really understanding what's going on. So that means being able to do that before the digging is going to be beneficial to you as well.
My next one is KISS everything. So there's a principle called KISS, keep it simple, stupid. That probably applies to me more than most others, being Polish and all that good thing. Is that politically correct still? Anyway. So, I mean, if we really roll it back, you listen to a lot of software developers, all software is already broken. It's already going to have bugs in it. It's already going to have things that, are going to need patched and all that. We all live with Windows and the problems that it has trying to fix its issues, as well as becoming more secure and more in a better operating system for us. But if you got a 2-person office, you probably don't need that full-fledged Windows, server and all that kind of stuff. Maybe a NAS device, maybe you push everything to the cloud. Best fit, keep it simple, focus on what the client need is, not what you want to put in and the toys you want to play with. That one's pretty simple. Not gonna work.
I mean, I think it's funny. So I think there's a lot to be said with that phrase. And again, if you want to keep it PG as you're talking about it, you can always say, keep it silly, keep it simple, silly, whatever. But anyway, I think that drives it home for you. There is a lot to be said to keep it simple. And I think that we have to understand that everyone is always changing that single pane in the glass, right? Or single pane of glass, where Jeff has so elegantly has put it that it's really a single pane in the, so I think it is a way to say that everyone is always trying to chase that simplicity. But what we end up doing to ourselves is we like what a particular system can do, another vendor, another tool, etc., without really venturing to see if the tools that they use can do the same thing. And alternatively, by looking at a new tool that may help simplify many things that are happening in their solution. So perfect example, I have a colleague of mine that is kind of hodgepodge their way of their solution. And, they have a free version of a PSA. They have an RMM from a different company. They are manually trying to take payments through Stripe. They are doing backups through another third provider, and a lot of these things, I'll just hit the mic. A lot of things have this ability where that's all this time you're spending on all these areas. And it turns to a point where you really need to see what's going to help you save time. Again, I use that phrase, time as a widget, and understanding what's going to make you more profitable. I think what a lot of us do when we don't see that money up front and we don't see it tangible, we feel that time is not a commodity that is important to us. And it's not until you start seeing the money kind of coming in that you understand that you're getting a little bit busier, and how do you maximize that profit? So keeping it simple will allow you to not only consolidate tools, but it also means on other things too, operations wise. Do you have to pick up a phone call every single time, or could that be going to an answering service? Do you have to, and standardizing that process, right? So although you want to keep it simple with what you got, there's two sides to that story. Are there things that can help it make it even better and simpler? Or when you're looking at something, can you achieve that with what you have so that it maintains that simplicity and you're not adding another layer that is obviously going to cause some complication as you move forward?
And I think you hit a magic word in there as part of that, is that standardization.
Yep.
You can't sell 20 different types of products and be the master of any of them. You got to focus on a core group that fits your client base.
Yep. Absolutely. Kyle, anything you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I think that's a big thing that I've also especially in the early days, that I would try to go around and pick all these things based on really mainly price, because I wasn't pricing myself correctly. But also on the other side of things, I feel like there are times where we need to pick the right tool for the job. Just because it's integrated into something that you already use doesn't mean that that's the right way to do it. Or I just see this come up a lot where things are not necessarily integrated into platforms that people already use. So they either don't implement the solution and are doing it manually, or they might wait around for the solution to be implemented and things like that, where if you got something that you need to do and it's going to save you time and make you money, maybe you got to spend a little money to make that solution happen. It might be a backup or a managing certain endpoints on a certain OS, different things like that. Sometimes you just got to just fork up the cash, spend the money. If something comes down the line that fits better, like Paco said originally, you can transition over to it, get that single pane of glass. It's this like kind of elusive thing, this single pane of glass thing, but it's also, you don't want to be 20 different places at once, because you get 400 alerts and all this noise that eventually just you kind of mute it out, and then you don't listen to what the notifications are, and going into that kind of naming convention of the computers. I mean, that's something that I want to implement now. So it's like, you don't think of those things, but when you see that alert come up and you look at that name, it's like you don't have to, that little bit of time where you would have dug in to see where it's coming from or what business and what asset that maps to, having that name gives you that quick kind of, what's going on, and you can start to react from that point.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, again, proponent, and I've always said this in previous episodes, is standardization. So you can't go wrong in just driving that home. Yeah. All right, John.
If I was 10 years younger, that'd be my tattoo, my next tattoo. That's right. My next one is choose your battles and stick to your guns, or maybe another way to say that would be create balance. So my thought here is the relationship with you have your clients and how you've priced your business. If you priced your business just to be an endpoint service provider, MSP, meaning that you're maintaining the endpoints, monitoring, providing antivirus, and the basic security points on that, and then you get a call from a client that says, hey, we need you to install this XYZ product that has nothing to do with what you're doing for them, that should be billable time. And you got to stick to your guns on that. All right, because you're not billing them enough to do this project work without billing them for that project work. Now, if you're a full service provider and you've promised them everything in a flat fee, you also got to build in where you're limiting us on that too, or otherwise they'll take you for a ride all the way out. So, create that balance, create those expectations with your clients before you get caught in a catch-22. And it also goes, I think, in the way that you allow clients to communicate with you. You have to have a set procedure where they are either hitting that support ad email address or some other communication, so that your phone isn't blowing up on your Sunday morning with somebody that needs help with their Xbox at home that really has nothing to do with something that's within the scope of your service agreement, so that you can pay attention to the tickets that are important, and you're only being bothered on your time by stuff that is important based on the tools that you've set up. So create balance.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of users, or I should say managed service providers, or just IT support businesses in general, want to be there for their customers and their clients. But, in that caring and that wanting to do right by their clients, they end up leaving themselves a little bit open just to the fact of, you really want to make sure that you designate what you're offering. And I think you have to make sure you don't say, hey, we'll do everything. We're your one throat to choke. Although that's okay, you have to leave room for growth. You have to leave room for the ability to, as John mentioned, bill. I think and as an example, in a story real quick, is we took on a client that was probably our biggest client, maybe 2.5, 3 years ago. And we unfortunately did the whole all-in situation. And it turned out that they were more about implementing projects than really the support capability of what the plan was really meant for. So it ended up looking bad on us, where they were asking for updates on all of these projects, But in reality, it should have been billable because I kind of either outsourced it or had the ability to expand and bring more people on. So in the end, I ended up having to let that client go just because the need for them, I could not fulfill their requirements or what they were asking for, just because at the time I was a one-man show and I just couldn't do it. I was just stretched too thin. So the ability of understanding where you are is a big piece, and understanding where you are offering wise as well. Now, I get it. You want to make sure you get as much cash as possible in any which way. You may be putting in sinks for people. You may be doing all kinds of other stuff. And yes, I've heard IT providers doing this, going above and beyond outside of what they really need to do. But you really need to understand where you are able to do, how you monetize your time properly, and being able to understand how you go ahead and really get to the point of being able to offer what you can serve.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% there. It's being able to set expectations, I think, is a huge thing that we've probably all learned over the years. And so much up that we literally spell out, this is included, this is included, this is included, this is not included, and anything outside of this like project work, like you want to throw up a new website or you want to throw up 5 new computers for the new office downstairs, like we make it very clear. And I'm also pretty, I mean, maybe to a flaw, I'm really honest with my clients, like brutally honest. We'll talk, straight up to each other, and I think that's a benefit for especially the clients that I've had long term. They know that about me, so it's we'll be very clear up front that this is a project work, this is things that are not included in the maintenance. And honestly, we really never have that conversation because the relationship has been built on this trust, and we've set the expectations. And I won't pretend like I've never set the expectations right. Literally my first managed client is a lesson that could be used for everybody. And I eventually lost that client because I didn't set those expectations correctly. And at the time I was so devastated, but it kind of lit this fire to, one, standardize and set expectations correctly, and be honest and upfront about when things are just not covered. I can't be there all day implementing all these things under a maintenance plan, in doing those things. And now I've, just snowballed after that, picking up new maintenance clients that we've implemented properly. So I think it's managing expectations is such a huge thing, and I think it's kind of a golden rule that a little bit of a foundation for this point. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and this is where you get into, and John, I'll let you chime in here, is like, the ability of being able to properly communicate that to your clients, right? Because the last thing you want to do is have the liability of something happening and nothing's talked about. So for example, project goes wrong and they want a refund. What's the policy on that? Like, if nothing is stated, it could be a back and forth, and that can be an ugly situation. Or said service was offered, said service was turned down. So the understanding was they will take care of it. And 2 years down the line, hey, our backups failed and you weren't monitoring it, it's your fault. And if you don't have that communication or something in writing that acknowledges that, it's your word against theirs. And, it's a very lengthy process to try and figure it out. And as business owners, sometimes we don't want to even deal with it. And sometimes we just want it to go away, and we end up losing more without having set those expectations. Don, anything you want to add on to that?
Well, I just go back to that whole liability thing. I remember I used to bring in my drill and my hole punches and my everything, and try to make everything pretty. And I'm drilling in desks and all that kind of stuff to try to. No, not anymore. I mean, I drill into something, I hit a pipe, I do something, I rip up some electrical. I've been electrocuted trying to sell pumps. I hope somebody. That's a story for a different podcast. But no, you got to be careful about all that. Obviously, we all want to take care of our clients as best as we can within the scope of what we do, though. And they have to be understanding. If anything, find a carpenter that'll work with you, that can be on call, that you can refer, stay in your scope of professional work. That's just my opinion. Yeah. I mean, if you're good with tools and you want to take that on and you get that written into your insurance and life is good and you're willing to do that, I mean, amen. It probably saves you a lot of time. I'm not a carpenter by trade, nor do I even pretend to be one after a night at a Holiday Inn, so I'm out. So,
I mean, and you made a good point. I mean, look at the story that Kerry Holzman mentioned on an episode of Tech Vets, where he thought he was doing a great favor to a client, where he was getting rid of this old cable that he thought wasn't connected anywhere, and he snipped it, and it turned out to cost him more than what the job had. Plus, I think even it cost him more on resources and money wise. It cost him more on time wise to try and get him back up and running. There was an impact to the business, and he was just trying to do the right thing, and
purely the right thing.
Yeah. And sometimes, that's where, you mentioned the liability and understanding where you are. Sometimes it ends up, not working in your favor. So,
I would have cut that cable on a heartbeat too, because I'm OCD. Man, if that thing was just hanging there and all that,
I'm the same way.
Doesn't look pretty. I got to look at that, but not anymore. So yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, I'm with you. I understand. Going on a job with John and the plastic still on the screen drives him nuts. I get it. So
that little plastic off of there, right there. Come on. All right, my last one, and then I'll let somebody else talk for a little bit. I call it the equation. All the other thing on my list I've learned from somebody else, but this one I think I claim for my own, and I call it the equation. And this is based on all other things being equal and correct, meaning that you do have commitment to your clients, you do have integrity, you are an honest person dealing with your clients. The equation is what makes your job easier is good for your clients. The less you have to work, it's better for your clients. All right, period. Under the MSP platform. It kind of sounds weird, and it still sounds weird every time I say it, but if you're not responding to their outages and you're doing just purely project and improvement work for them, on a scheduled basis, that is when you're doing your job right. So if you can restore their backups faster, get them up and running faster, in anything that makes your job easier, it's better for them. Because they're participating in a way that is not impacting their business and only improving their business. So,
yep.
And that's my short 8. So go ahead.
Yeah, and I think again, the standardization is key on there, because whatever you can do to make your job easier will be easier for them. And again, going back to having that restore, because you've already had that platform nailed down and you kind of consolidate and things like that. I really do believe you're making your job easier, which may encourage costs to the client, will help benefit them in the long run.
Absolutely.
And I think I'll toss it over to Kyle, where, when it comes to, as you start to really getting this organization piece, and I know you mentioned you're kind of in process of doing that right now and really understanding, do you see that benefit where the client will understand that benefit, or is that something that may have to be battled because, they just may not understand?
Now, when you say the client, will they see that benefit? Are you talking about me doing organization for like their side of things, or me doing organization to make my job easier?
I would go with both. I think the fact that, when they get wind of, hey, you're implementing let's say a Watt box, it's an additional cost to them to charge, but in reality, it's making your job easier for that modem or router that needs to be restarted. And they're trying to figure out, well, it's just helping you out. How does that help me? Has that conversation, a similar type of conversation like that, have you had any trouble explaining that value to them? And if not, what have you done to kind of help provide that conversation?
Yeah. So I've actually literally had 2 of these conversations in the last couple of months, couple different scenarios. But one is like, it's probably relatable for some, is Domots. It's kind of network monitor. Put a little box in there. You can roll your own box or buy theirs. What I do is I use their box, and it was kind of this weird thing where the way this project was going, it was kind of like it wasn't necessarily going as planned on a schedule thing. That's fine. I'm not necessarily digging on that, but we were there implementing it, and I'm like, hey, since this kind of just happened at the spur of the moment today, want us to put this Domots box in. I didn't say Domots box, but I said, this is a box we can put in. It's going to monitor your network. It's going to make things a lot easier. They said, well, do I need it? I said, you don't really need it, but if we're going to kind of manage this whole network and do things, it's something that I would require if we're going to go into a managed plan. We're literally building like a network cabinet and putting stuff in there. So I said, if we're not going to be on the managed side, even at that point, it's going to make things easier if we get an alert or something going on, or you can make a complaint about something that is not working correctly, we have that insight into the network that's going to save us all some time, which ultimately is just going to save you some money. Because if we have to come out here and we realize that it's just a cable that's unplugged, well, we just had to roll a truck. We got to drive. We got time. This is assuming they're not in a managed plan. We got to, have travel fees and all this stuff. Where if we have this Donuts box, we can say things, maybe not literally a network cable unplugged, but it could be something very simple that could be done remotely, or maybe you just got to, swap the cable or something like that, where we don't have to spend that travel time, that troubleshooting time. A lot of those kind of insights are there. And this could go for any tool, any monitoring tool, things like that. If you're getting alerts that, the QuickBooks service isn't working, that it's the QuickBooks service not working. It's not that the host is unplugged because someone tripped a breaker. You know what I mean? So it's you can kind of, having these tools to give you those insights not only save you time, but also will ultimately save the customer money if they're not on a plan. But even in the long term, we're going to require these certain things to implement a managed plan. So it's kind of we'll have different conversations that will try to implement these things, like you said, like walk boxes and things like that, where the customer doesn't necessarily know what that actually does until we explain it. But it's pretty rare that we get pushback in implementing things that will create efficiency, because they know that no matter what happens, they want it fixed as fast as possible. And I think that's one of the things that we, and I would imagine any managed service provider is going to pride themselves in, to get that done as soon as possible, within reason. We have SLAs and things like that. But if we're constantly fixing something very quickly, that's going to make the customer happy. Ideally, we don't have to fix anything because everything's set up to run perfectly. We have all of our automations in place, and no one kind of sees what's going on in the background. But it takes tools, it takes money to do that, and it takes time to set those things up, like I was talking about originally. But implementing hardware, sometimes you can get pushback, and it's kind of adapting that conversation to hopefully explain to them in a way that they can understand it and why they need something like that. But yeah, hopefully that ramble answers your question.
No, that's a great point, and I want to jump on that bandwagon a little bit from two. I use the Oversee product for the exact same thing that other guys use the Domots product for, and that's been a huge help. Sometimes I think, yeah, boy, it's just one truck roll. You pay for this. It's one. If we eliminate one truck roll this year, you've paid for it. Hello.
Yeah.
But I also through all this automation, and I just look at the stuff that I do on a weekly basis that the clients don't know a darn thing about. Things just keep running. So I've always struggled with a way that, how do we communicate what we're doing, to the client in a meaningful way, almost like in a story way. I do, or I used to do, I haven't done it in a long time, this little newsletter called 60 Seconds with Your Maven group, where I would send this, and I would make sure that my wife could read and understand it in less than 60 seconds, just to what we did, because nobody has more than that. Nobody wants to read any more email than that. And maybe there's a link in there if they have more interest. But so, that's the thing. We get so good at what we do sometimes that I think sometimes the clients think, well, what the heck is Kyle doing?
Yep.
So especially with COVID now that we never see them in their office either. So yeah, that's just, make sure you're touching your client, even if it's something dumb. Maybe we want to talk about sending gift baskets or something. I'm kind of, light on the Chinese waste thing, sending out plastic stuff to people. But, if it's something meaningful that comes from you, what did I do? What was my last? Oh, I sent
M&Ms.
No, I did. Right when COVID started, I did "Who Moved My Cheese," the book.
Oh, yeah.
I sent that to all my business owners, just as that kind of thing. So I don't know, creative ways to stay in touch and prove your worth, that you're actually thinking about clients.
Yeah, as always too. I think is keeping top of mind with even current clients and potential clients. You want to be their first thought when it comes to anything like that, and also you want to what have you done for me lately? That you don't want them to have that mentality. Hey, the reason we haven't talked is because everything's working perfect. And the only reason you see me is because you wanted that new printer, because the 5 others we put in there are working perfect. So that's the goal. And obviously things happen. Going through an email thing right now with one of my longest clients. It's just can't wait to get them off the solution that we inherited. So that's a pain point sometimes, but once they know that we're handling it the best we can, it's out of our control. we don't control this provider. The provider is the one that has to fix these things. So it's getting those things fixed and getting off of this provider is ultimately the goal. So it's knowing that having your client know that things do come up and you're going to solve them as quickly and efficiently as you possibly can.
Yeah, I think communication is key. I think being able to really understand, I think what we get wrapped up in is trying to figure out what value do we send to the client to let them know that we're doing something, right? Because we have the camp of those that are not going to look at the email or report. Some will, and they'll appreciate that you're finding out from them. So it's very important to schedule that time with them, understand what they're doing, have that conversation. Don't let it be a got the contract, set it and forget it, and then kind of just go off, right? So understand the value, really understand, have that conversation, give them the updates. I think they'll appreciate you reaching out to them, letting them know. And yeah, if you have a ticket that's been stale for quite some time because maybe you were delaying on stuff, I think they'll be really appreciative to understand why it got stale, what's going on. And if there's a hiccup with a staff member, they may be able to help push that along too. So I think that's all great pieces. We're going to take a quick break. I want Kyle and John, if you can get your gather your final thoughts, and we'll go ahead and round it out. But for everyone listening, if you'd like to support the show, if you can go to patreon.com/MSP Unplugged. We have a great community that we've assembled from those that have supported us. If you go ahead and go to patreon.com and support us, it's about $1 a show. And what it allows us to do is bring you a lot of this great content, support some of the things that we're doing here, but it also gains you access to the private Facebook group that we've assembled. And we have a really good core amount of people in there, very tight-knit community. But what we're proud of is two things. One, we have the ability of bringing you advanced information that we would otherwise not reveal until after on the podcast or in the newsletter, depending on what it is. The Facebook group normally gets the first look on what's kind of happening in our little realm. And then the second piece is we've really built this to be a very big safe zone. I think what a lot of other Facebook groups that I've personally been a part of and I have seen, it really allows the point where everyone can ask a question. They can be safe. They can not feel like they are asking a dumb question or anything like that. I think the biggest piece of what I've seen is that there are those that speak opinions as facts. And what ends up happening is it allows them, for those asking the question, makes them maybe feel like it's not a safe place. They don't want to ask any more questions, or they feel like they're stupid for even asking. And that's something that I've been very big on, making sure that it's a big, safe place for everyone to be able to ask that type of question and have a place to go to, because there's not a lot of that out there right now, in my opinion. So, no fault to all those who have the Facebook groups. I mean, these groups are so big, it's hard to moderate and things of that nature. But, sometimes you got to handle those type of things. And for us, we have zero tolerance for that. So if we see someone kind of, not, speaking opinions as fact and, kind of really doing essentially a bullying situation, we, ban them out and knock them out of the group. So, and that's just essentially how our policy is. So everyone plays nice, everyone's good. I mean, we have not had that problem. I don't think we've had any issues from what I've seen. And it's a great place to really dump some conversations, some thoughts and things of that nature. So if you want to go head over to patreon.com/MSP Unplugged, we greatly appreciate it. And also we want to thank those that have continuously support us as well. All right, gentlemen, we're a little over the hour here. Just wanted to gather our last thoughts. John, why don't you come ahead and let us know if there's anything else we want to add on to, working on your business.
Oh, I probably blabbed enough today. Hopefully those 8 tips will be helpful to some, and thanks very much. It's great to participate.
Great. Kyle?
Yeah, just wanted to touch on one thing. We're talking about like to-do list and organization things, and maybe this is something that people haven't heard of. I use DACboard in a couple places. We have it at the house. I have it out front here in the office, and in the back for different situations. It's
what
a
did
great
it spell it for me?
DAK board.
Thanks.
So it's like a smart, runs off a Raspberry Pi thing. So I have my calendar. I have my to-do list. I don't use to-do lists for like clients, but I use them for like internal things or home things to get done. And then in the front, I got kind of like a news ticker and our Instagram and stuff like that. So it's a great thing to kind of bring everything. I got pictures of my daughter on there, so it kind of aligns everything that's frankly important, and gives me kind of a quick glance. I can walk over there, see the weather, see what time it is, all kinds of stuff like that. So really cool thing to implement. And just to touch on Paco's thing with the Facebook groups, if I was doing things that I did 10 years ago, I'd be out of business. So it's learning, and I didn't learn what I know today by sitting there and staring at a wall. The information didn't just get dumped into my head. I've either read an article that somebody wrote, a podcast, talked to somebody, read a book that someone wrote, watched a movie that someone made. It's all these things. You're learning from other people. So take that into mind when you're in a Facebook group, and these people are here to help. I try to help as much as I can when I know the answer to things. So it's a thing that I've learned a ton, hopefully helped people out a ton, and just get organized. And that's my closing thoughts.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay. Whoa. Let's talk about this DAC board a little bit more.
All right.
So I see that it's very interesting.
Yeah,
very cool.
it's
I've
awesome.
never heard of it. What are you just running it off a standard monitor, or did you buy one of the
literally? Not that you can really see it, but right behind me, right there is a monitor that kind of that's where all my parts and things are, so I can look. I got air quality, weather. I have my calendar that I color code like family calendar, so I know hey, don't book an appointment here because you got to bring your doctor or your daughter to the doctor's that day or something like that. So it tells me those types of things for this one back here specifically, but also hey, you got an appointment at 2:00 at this location. You pull all your I use Google Calendar, so you can pull as many streams as you want of Google Calendar. Got holidays, birthdays, things like that. It adapts differently at home the way I have it set up. I feed things in from Google Photos. I pick a special album that I set up. So I use Todoist, so it pulls my Todoist. That it's kind of just like tasks I want to get done around the office or things like that. Hey, go, whatever. Finish that that computer build or something like that. That's for an internal thing, not necessarily a customer, because that's going to be in a ticket. So I don't really need that. But the one out front is totally different. It pulls Instagram from my Pro Tech Guy stuff. It's got a news ticker for threats, air quality, weather, time, things like that. It says good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the time you look at it. So a lot of cool, you can do so many things. You can put an iframe in there. I have my reviews pop up at the bottom. And then the one at home is just completely different for home stuff.
Very cool. All right. Thank you.
Pretty cheap, yeah.
So I have some homework for Kyle, if he can take some pictures and post them in the Facebook group, because I'd be interested in see what you got there, because that sounds like a great thing. And then, tying it back up to kind of what Kyle mentioned, I think, the value of community and understanding how to, learning, and getting better on your, working on your business, working on yourself. I mean, I think for me, once, before I joined, I was in the business for about, I think at the time, 10 years at the time before 2014, where I got introduced to PodNuts. And then PodNuts led me to getting acquainted with Jeff, and then getting acquainted with John. And then we kind of culminated a great friendship from there, and then started learning from others in the community. And then now as we evolved and went into MSP Unplugged and our event and things of that nature. So, I think what I've learned in the last 5 years trumps everything that has come from the previous 10. And it's just one of those where, like you mentioned, you don't know what you don't know. And it's great to have just like-minded business owners, or even the point where you always learn something from someone. And I'm a true believer of that. And it's just one of those where, it's a great opportunity now to just reach out, read, listen, join, and really get to the point where, how do you step your business up, or what will help you sustain your business to your liking and to your benefit for what you're trying to do for a living. So I think it's all great points, and going from there. So with that, I want to thank you both for coming out and on the show. I appreciate it. And for anyone who wants to get a hold of you, Kyle, how would they go ahead and do that?
You can shoot me an email, kyle@protechguy.com. I'm in the Facebook group, way too much. And if you need anything, you want to bounce an idea off me or ask me something that I talked about in here, feel free to shoot me an email.
Appreciate it. And John, everyone knows you from so long ago. How would, if anyone wanted to poke you, what's the best way to do that?
Well, a couple different ways. MSP Unplugged, MavenGroup.net, or I'll just look forward to seeing everybody at TechCon 2021. I know it's a little ways off, but we can catch up there too.
There you go. So again, we appreciate everyone viewing the show here. Come join us every Friday at noon Eastern. Watch live and hang out in the chat room over at youtube.com/MSP Unplugged. Subscribe and hit that notification button so you'll never miss an episode. Use your favorite podcasting app to take us wherever you go. Also as well, and we want to thank you for listening. We will see you next time on MSP Unplugged.